We've recently seen an opinion poll which suggests that the Reform Party is one percentage point ahead of the Labour Party. It's a long way, of course, to the next general election, and it's one thing to tell pollsters now that you're sympathetic to the Reform Party, and another thing to be voting for them in 4 or 5 years' time. But obviously, the Labour Party are worried about the way in which they think reform is gaining ground on them. Unfortunately, their reaction to this understandable fear isn't to draw clear lines between themselves and reform. It's all too often to use rhetoric and to employ an analysis which is uncomfortably similar to that of reform. We had a very good example of that the other day when in the House of Commons, Keir Starmer criticised Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservative Party, for her government having conducted, as he put it, an uncontrolled experiment in migration until July of this year. Now, there are many criticisms to be made of Badenoch and the previous Conservative government, but that really isn't one of them. And the criticism is one that comes from the mouth and comes from the analysis of Nigel Farage, who holds up migration as being a demonic force which is threatening the whole of the United Kingdom, not referring, of course, to the necessity in many aspects of our economic and social life for migration, and not referring to the way in which, when we were in the European Union, freedom of movement gave us a much more rational way of approaching migration, economic and socially necessary migration, than we have at the moment. It didn't surprise me entirely, I must say, to see Keir Starmer striding across the House of Commons to engage in amicable conversation with Nigel Farage, where they seem to be in agreement on some issue or another. It was clear that that was a public gesture that he wanted people to see. And indeed, it's not just on migration that Keir Starmer has located himself much too close to the reform analysis. All of the approach to Brexit, the ruling out of the single market, the customs union, the ruling out of the freedom of movement, the hostility to the youth mobility proposals coming from the Commission, all those things are designed in order to make the Labour Party more attractive more likely to be voted for by those people who might otherwise be tempted by reform. We've seen it, I'm afraid, in the Conservative Party over the years, that it has wanted to identify itself with UKIP and its philosophy. This seems now to have affected the Labour Party as well, and it's a great pity for the British economy and society. Keir Starmer gave us his 6 milestones recently for judging the progress that he and his government will be making over the next 5 years. In fact, all of these milestones will be much more easily achieved if we were able to re-enter the single market or the customs union and re-establish the economic ties that were so beneficial for us. But that can't happen, and it's purely for internal party political reasons. Starmer claimed to be following the national interest rather than the party interest. I'm afraid on Brexit, that really isn't the way that he's gone about his business. And I think that a new challenge is coming for the view that Starmer has taken, that it's possible to have a reset of the relationship with the European Union without giving anything from the British side. And that new element is Donald Trump. Starmer said the other day that he thought it was not going to be necessary to choose between a good relationship with the European Union and a good relationship with Donald Trump's America. Well, I can understand why he says that, but I don't think many people agree with him. Certainly, Trump's economic advisor, who said that it was up to the British now in order to stand well with the United States to emancipate itself from the socialism of the European Union. Elon Musk, this favored counselor of Trump, has been particularly vehement in his denunciation of Starmer and the Labour Party. Everybody knows that Trump despises the European Union. And it may well be that he attempts to engage in offers which will drive a wedge between the United Kingdom and the European Union. If that happens, that will be a very difficult political decision for Starmer. It shouldn't be a difficult political decision because it's quite clear from all the opinion polls that have ever been conducted that in a choice between the United States and Europe, the great majority of the British electorate would want to favour European values and the European association. That's why during the referendum, there was so little public record, public reference to the desire of important members of the Leave coalition to bring us closer to the United States and take us away from European values such as the social provision and free healthcare. Those things have not gone unnoticed, and really it's surprising that Starmer is still attempting to do this, maintain this equilibrium between saying you have to be friends both with the EU and the US. I don't think it's going to work. And in some ways, I think that will be a helpful, a healthy clarification. Because one of the problems we had when we were in the European Union was the difficulty that many people in this country, particularly in the political elite, find in emancipating themselves from the American thrall. The idea is that in the same way as America took the lead during the Second World War with the British, their loyal lieutenants, it might be possible in the post-war world for the United Kingdom to be the loyal lieutenants of the United States. We preferred, or the British elite, political elite preferred, to cede our sovereignty to the United States rather than to share it with our European neighbours. And that is a fundamental miscalculation, which Trump will make it even more difficult for British politicians to embrace. The Rejoin EU party, like many others, an increasing number of commentators and critics, believes that the reset that Keir Starmer envisages with the European Union is going to be a dud. As long as the red lines are in place, as long as there's a desire on his part to show the red wall that he's not going to get too close to Europe, no reset is possible. But our criticism is not just of Keir Starmer. All succeeding governments since 2016 have attempted to evolve a rational solution, a rational approach to Brexit, and they've failed. And the reason why they've failed is that there is no way of making Brexit work. That's what the Rejoin EU party is in the business of saying. And we'll be saying it in elections, by-elections, local elections, regional elections, over the next 4 or 5 years leading up to the next general election. I hope that if you agree with the views that I've expressed, when you have an opportunity to vote for a Rejoin EU candidate, you'll take it. Thank you very much.
Vote Rejoin EU. Join the EU vision.